Hi, and thank you for completing your integrated speaking practice test. So you actually redid your response. So I think originally you're scoring around 23, 24 points out of 30 on the integrated speaking. So you listened to a lecture about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Then you explained it in about 60 seconds. So you redid it, and that's kind of where we are right now. So anybody at YouTube, if you're interested, go to bettertoeflscores.com. I have a TOEFL speaking and writing feedback service. I think you'll get exactly the same kind of feedback I'm providing my student right now. Okay, let's listen to your revised version of what you did before. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to it. Here we
This
go.
lecture discusses extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, according to the professor, is the external reward people get from others. It can be praise or even money. The professor then gives an example of it as a child who does small chores around his or her household in order to receive allowance from their parents. However, if the parents stop giving them money, they probably won't continue motivated to do the tasks. In addition, the professor cites intrinsic motivation as more long-lasting. She says that people tend to do it because they enjoy doing it for internal pleasure. For example, she goes to the gym because she feels good about her health, and that habit kept her going for the last 5 years.
Okay, so I think you're still not going to get it. This is tough. So I'm going to go over it again one more time in more detail, but let's take a look. I think the biggest problem right now, I think, is your delivery with some minor language use issues. I think at the very end, you said kept her going. I would say has kept her going. I think the present perfect is going to work better than the simple past in that case. So let's look at it. Speech is clear with fluidity of expression, but exhibits minor difficulties with pronunciation, intonation, or pacing. This is the issue that's getting you right here and may require some listener effort at times. Overall intelligibility remains good, however. I think some of those unnatural pauses, I think that's characterizing it more in the three area with your delivery. So I just don't see this getting 26. So let's listen to it one more time.
This lecture
But it's
discusses
almost like this lecture discusses. Why are we pausing after lecture? Lecture is a subject, discusses is a verb. There's no reason to pause there. This lecture discusses extrinsic and intrinsic forms of motivation. So I wouldn't pause anywhere in that sentence.
extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, according to the professor, is the external reward people get from others. It can be praise or even money. The professor then gives an example of it as a child.
Give you an example of it as a that those are the hesitations in there. That's pacing. Problems with pacing.
Who does small chores around his or her
Who does
household
small chores around his or her household. So you gotta kind of connect that all together as one thought group.
in order to receive allowance from their
I like
parents.
how you're changing the allowance from a small amount of money and then chores from small jobs. So you're using synonyms, taking my suggestions to help explain the ideas. That's a good strategy.
However,
I would
if
say,
the parent
however, so with that transition where put a little more emphasis on it, it shows contrast. Maybe the tone goes up slightly because you're pausing, you're not done with the sentence yet. Okay, let's go back.
receive allowance from their parents. However, if the parents stop giving them money, they probably won't continue motivated to do the tasks.
How about they will not remain motivated to complete these
In
tasks?
addition, the
That you can
professor
make it a little more concise there. Let me go back again one more time.
however, if the parent,
You
if
see
the
how you
parents,
repeated that? You did that in the beginning too. You don't want to repeat like that. If the parents, that's not good. That's one of the fastest ways you're going to bring down your score is repeating because it kind of shows a lack of automaticity of your language use there. It's you're just not confident enough to say the whole sentence there. So be careful about that. I think that's one of the fastest ways to not get 26 with your delivery is to unnecessarily repeat things like that.
stop giving them money, they probably won't continue motivated to do the tasks. In addition, the professor
The professor
cites
cites. You're disrupting that. In addition, the professor cites another form of motivation, intrinsic, right? So you don't want to put that conversational filler in there. It disrupts the flow of your sentence.
intrinsic motivation as more long-lasting. She says that people tend to do it because they enjoy
See, you're getting a
doing
little
it.
smoother right there. I like this area here. Listen to this.
Cites intrinsic motivation as more long-lasting. She says that people tend to do it because they enjoy doing it
People like to
for
do it because
internal
they enjoy doing it. People like to people like to have people complete tasks because they're motivated to do it from within. Be careful about using it a lot. You like to use it. That's kind of weak. It's weak grammar. It's weak vocabulary. It's not showing good, strong word choice if you rely on those pronouns too much.
pleasure. For example, she goes to the gym because she feels good about her health, and that
That
habit
habit
kept her
has
going.
kept her going. The present perfect works better here because you're kind of implying that she started going to gym in the past, but she still goes to the gym even now. So I think the past perfect tense better reflects, I think that time reference or that time reality as opposed to the simple past, which is an action that has a beginning and end in the past.
For the last 5 years.
It's tough. So I don't want to give you the bad news, but I don't think you're going to make it. Not on even on that revision. I still think it's probably around 23, 24 points, mainly because of delivery with some minor problems with language use. So let's take a look at my comments here now. I kind of I kind of put them down in Microsoft Word now to kind of end with this. So thanks for submitting your integrated speaking practice. I can see you're putting in the work. I mean, you're revising something you've already done, and that kind of consistency is practice is key. It will absolutely help you improve over time. So keep doing that. Don't be afraid to redo a speaking response and then send it to me. There's still a few areas to keep focusing on. And this is one that you really want to focus on, Luis. Try to avoid unnecessary repetition. For example, you repeated the phrase extrinsic and then you said extrinsic motivation. Later you said if the parents, then if the parents. Repeating words like this can disrupt the fluency of your response and make it sound less natural. Aim to state your ideas clearly once, then move forward confidently. Also, this is a big one. Your speaking rate still needs some improvement. Right now, you're pausing too often and breaking up your ideas into short, choppy segments. To sound more fluent, work on making your thought groups longer. Combine words that belong together into smoother phrases and try to speak through those chunks before pausing. So, here are some helpful suggestions to help you continue improving. I'm going to go over 4 things. Practice with shadowing. Listen to native speakers and repeat what they say in real time. This helps improve pacing, pronunciation, and natural phrasing. 2, record yourself daily, even if you don't send it to me for evaluation. Focus on speaking in full phrases and review your recordings to identify and reduce unnecessary pauses or repetitions. So you need to be able to find these mistakes. You need to be able to find these errors in your speaking, right? So that when you sent me that practice test to re-listen to, you should have already realized that it wasn't going to get 26 because of those problems with the speaking rate and that unnecessary repetition, right? So you have to get a little more aware of the problems that you're having in your speaking, because once you know what your errors are, you're more likely to eliminate them, not just because I point them out. Number 3, use transition words and connectors. I think this helps keep your ideas flowing and gives you a rhythm to follow. And you're doing that pretty well, by the way. Number 4, read aloud with expression. This trains you to group words naturally and speak more smoothly. With expression, it means you definitely want to vary your tone. It's important. So keep practicing. You're making progress. And with a little more work on fluency and phrasing, you'll be even closer to your target TOEFL speaking score. And thank you for completing the practice test. And everybody at YouTube, if you want to get this kind of feedback, go to bettertoeflscores.com and join my TOEFL speaking and writing feedback service.